Hey, Connie, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
I'm very excited to be here. Can't wait to talk sales.
You know, you don't know me that well, but everybody is like, LuAnn is in her glory right now. She's loving it. Anytime I have anybody on that also has studied sales, who loves sales, and most importantly, uses the word icky. Connie, like, I mean, when I read in your intake form, sales is not icky. I was like, wait, is she reading my mind right now? And
Yes.
so, yeah, right. I just, I literally, what I love is that when I think most of us that truly do study sales and do enjoy it, I've learned, maybe you tell me the same, that I find that most of us really do come from, if the sale is a good sale, if it's a win-win for both sides, that a good sale isn't, I convinced you of something you don't want. Not that we
Exactly.
couldn't do that, probably, but
Exactly.
that is not where we're going. And so everything I read about you and your website and everything, I was like, this is my people. So tell me a little bit about, why do you like sales so much? What got you into all of it? And what's that backstory,
So
Connie?
it's interesting because, see, this is the lack of ick factor. 40 years ago, so over 40 years ago, I'm dating myself there, kiddo, but 40 years ago, I was working for a credit company, had graduated college, got a job at a credit company, and my job was leasing. I would do the contracts for leasing. And so I started getting in these applications on the retail side because leasing back in the 80s weren't a thing. Well, anyway, the dealers would sell to a business owner, a retail deal. Well, back then, not anymore. So anybody listening going, wait, what? No, this doesn't exist anymore. But in the 80s, if you had a business and you leased a car, you can write the whole car payment
I
off.
remember that.
Okay. So, well, the dealers didn't understand that. So I would call them up and say, look, you did this deal for LuAnn. Really, she should be in a lease. They'd say to me, we don't know how to do the calculation. I did, and we didn't have computers. So I'd say, pull out your calculator. Fast forward, I taught them how to do this. Well, what ended up happening, the leasing department, we started growing exponentially. So my boss is like, what are you doing? My response, well, I'm teaching the salespeople just how to communicate better with, the ideal client. I didn't know any of this. I was 20 something years old. I was a moron, but I knew we have to do the right thing for the client. That is what always resonated in my brain. Fast forward, sales position came opened at the credit company. And so the dealers, all these men, right, start calling me, Connie, you're going to apply. I go, why would I apply for sales? They go, you're so good at it. I go, I am. And they said, what do you think? If we're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, the dealership was making all this money on leasing. I go, you are? And I said, all I did was teach you. And he goes, well, whatever you're doing, the dealers saying, whatever you're doing, you taught us sales.
Yes.
So I went to my boss and I said, hey, I think I'm good at the sales thing. What do you think? And he said, you're a female. They won't let me promote you. And fast forward, he was a wonderful man, by the way. So here's anybody listening. So I was discriminated against because I was a chick. Okay, whatever. So I went.
It was a real thing, folks.
It was
Still
a
is.
real thing, Pete, right? But it was so cool because he saw. I was 20 something. I didn't know anything, but he saw my capacity and capability, and he said to me, "You've already outgrown us. You need to get your resume together and look for another job, and you should be in sales." Wow. So I was going for my MBA at night in finance. And so he coached me, helped me get my resume together. And then that's how I ended up in financial sales for most of my career. So see, listen to people. I could have been, oh my God, woe's me. What am I going to do? But I listened. I took he's an elder, right? I took his advice, and fast forward 40 years later, now I teach sales and I work with, conglomerate organizations. So I really attribute it to him, even though it was because I was a female. So from everything happens for a reason, LuAnn, and it was my trajectory. And I followed his advice, which was the smartest thing I could have done.
Well, and it's so true because, I've said this 1,000 times on the podcast. Every once in a while, whether I'm at a live event or something or another podcast, somebody will say, tell us about your greatest failure. And I just freeze over it because yes, of course, there's been failures, but it's immediately processed as what came of that? What did I learn from that? What grew out of that? Right. And so somebody could say to you, oh, what's, the time that you were most thwarted? And you're like, well, kind of this time, but it ended up to be the best thing. Right. And so I love that. That's very cool.
Yeah. True
So
story.
now you teach sales. Okay. Um, the thing is, I will share with you, Connie, for my audience, interior designers, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching through my chairman of the board.
Yep.
And I will tell you what I always describe when somebody is first calling and interested in possibly engaging with my chairman of the board program. They ask, what is it? And I'm like, it's kind of easier to say what it's not. It's not templates. It's not worksheets. It's not like, hey, step one is this, step two is this. It's like, I'm going to meet you where you are. We're going to figure out what you need and we're
Yep.
just going to move you ahead. That's what it is. You just have that person, like you had that gentleman that saw in you the strengths and the skill set and the opportunities
Yep.
and helped you go in that direction. And so, and then what I always explain is, we have our regular meetings, scheduled meetings throughout the year, but then we have, like always, it's Voxer support. So Voxer is the walkie-talkie, right?
Yep.
And I always say, and really the Voxer ends up almost always being situational coaching.
Yeah.
And I tell the designers it's situational coaching. You're in a tough spot with your client. You're in a tough spot with a landlord. You're in a tough spot with a trade. You blah blah blah. But what I know is it's sales training. It's sales conversation. It's literally assessing every tough spot that they're in,
Yes.
figuring out who has leverage, who has opportunity, what is the language to get agreement,
Yes.
to get us on the same page, to discover what the other person's most highest objective is. Do we want to deliver that objective or is that a hard no? But it's that nuance of that. It's a sales conversation. I mean, right? Do you agree with that?
Agree
Like every
100%.
time you open your mouth, you're selling or being sold to.
Absolutely. We're always selling. We're selling our kids. Our kids
Yes.
are selling us. It's constant. Everybody, you meet with operational people and I have corporate clients, right? So you meet with operational people and they go, we don't sell. I go, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you
because
do.
You're selling your idea. If you want to buy a new system, you want to streamline, you're selling all the time. And then you're supporting your salespeople who are helping the client journey right at the end of the day. So we're always selling. Agree with that 100%.
100%, right? And so the thing is, in your business, changing the sales game,
Yep.
you coach and lead
Yep.
people how to be better salespeople, better communicators. Obviously,
Correct.
is really at the heart of it.
That is
What
right.
are some of the things when over the years, Connie, you take an interior designer? That is, I think. Listen, I have been shouting it from the rooftops that you are selling every day. I think it has become more commonplace to not knee jerk, but I can tell you 8 years ago when I remember the very first couple of times I would say on the podcast, well, you're selling when you're going out and doing your proposals. It was so common. People are like, absolutely not. I'm not a salesperson. And I'd be like, oh, so sweetie. That's so cute. That's great. But you're not also going to be profitable if you don't understand this. So, but now I don't think there's as much resistance. Now what I think I mostly hear, Connie, is I get that I have to think of it this way, but I don't know how to think of it this way and I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, just be a human. Like we're having a conversation. Figure out what the other person wants. Can you deliver it? But you tell me, how do you do it when you meet with people who are resistant to the idea in whatever shape that takes?
Yeah. And it's funny because what you just described, right? It's mindset. It's just what I think and what I actually do could be two very different things. And that's not right or wrong. And there's no judgment with that statement. It's just perspective. It's what I think I'm doing or think I'm not doing. So it number one, a couple of thoughts based on what you just said. Number one, it really is about communication. So I want everybody to think, and I have my communication style assessment that you tried to take, and we won't go into that now, okay? But anyway, so I've discovered in 40 years, right? And I've been certified in DISC. I've been exposed to Myers-Briggs. There's a million models out there. The other one is
Predictive index.
I love predictive index.
That's the one
too.
that we use.
But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, even the predictive index, if you're selling, like I'm a maverick in the PI.
Me too.
Right? Okay. Did I tell you on the onset? Oh, I knew exactly your CSA in 30 seconds. So let me comment on that too. So when the predictive index, and some of my clients do use predictive index and I can train that. I'm okay with that. But to say, oh, Connie's a maverick, and there's 16 or 17 sub types in
Yes.
the PI, right? Which is beautiful. It breaks it down. But now if I'm selling and I'm meeting you for the first time, to know that you're a maverick specifically, and then how do I have to sell to a maverick? Too much going on up here. So when I created my model, I gave names that you immediately feel who that client is. So from an emotional perspective, we could tap into that energy. And I've narrowed it down to 5, where DISC has 4. I think there's really 5 styles. Now, so what does that mean? I want to break this down. Let's get in the weeds for a minute.
Sure.
5 styles means 20% of the time, 2 out of 10 people I speak with, just like me, like you and I, we didn't shut up before we started recording. It was like we've been friends for 100 years because we're the same. I understood what you were saying. I didn't have to temper saying, well, how is she going to receive my message? It was, we were in the moment, we were blah, 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 and it was nonstop. There was no hesitation, and we got each other. 2 out of 10 people you're meeting are just like you.
Right.
Here's the magic. 8 out of 10 are not like you.
Right.
So now you have to pause and say, well, how is that person receiving my message? I guarantee it's not the way you're delivering it. And I can give a really good example. I have an architect as a client who works a lot with interior designers. And when we were going through the sales process with him, the communication he was fascinated by. And I said to him, when I coach you, do you know how long it takes me to prepare to coach you? I said, I have to lower my energy. I have to come up with analytics for you. I have to give you step by step. I said, but I have to have that written out because my brain is, oh, LuAnn, blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait, you just said that? Blah, blah, blah. We can do that. With him, he would have been like, huh?
Right.
So I had a temper. That takes effort.
It does.
So here's the other thing.
And self-awareness.
It's but now, right, that's the tool I've, 40 years doing this, right? An expert in communication. At the core, that's where your sales are. So what we end up doing, and I know this is what he ended up doing, he would do all this research on the style of the house. They liked craftsmen, whatever it was, right? And he'd go in with all these design ideas. Meanwhile, all they wanted to do was renovate their kitchen sink.
Yeah, right.
So you're all this over prepared about your craft. How about over preparing? Let me get in there. Let me have a nice conversation with no preconceived ideas based on you have this much information prior to meeting that client, right? You have maybe a little bit of convo on the phone, but you have very, very limited information. That first meeting should never be to sell your thing and give your proposal on the spot. That's not fair to you, but that's not fair to the client. So I tell my clients, you go in with no agenda. You go in with a prepared agenda of your questions, but you don't go in with, here's the solution. You don't know the solution until you speak with the client. The other thing with him, I said, you're over preparing with, it's your craft. You know it. If they said we want craftsmen, you could off the top of your head say, oh my gosh, I have 20 things back in my office. I'll email you as soon as I get back. And then you could decipher that's all you need to prepare for the craftsman because it's your craft. However, you need an agenda of what questions do you need to ask them? And that's the sales piece. So you're preparing the wrong thing when you should be preparing for the communication, especially in that first meeting, because then you send the proposal later, but you know exactly what they want. Your chances of making the sale has gone up to 80-90%, because I think it's Stephen Covey, 5th habit, of highly successful people.
Sure.
5th one is seek to understand before being understood. So we talk at the client. You know what I could do? I could do this and I could do this and I could do this. That's beautiful. And your heart, here's the other good news. Your heart is in the right place. You want to help them. You want to serve them. That's beautiful. But you need to know how to serve them. And you have to, So you have to kind of start from, how can I prepare to communicate with this person? So if you're talking to a Connie or a LuAnn, and you come with a million pictures and analytics and how long and the budget, I'm like, huh? I don't even know if I want blue or orange. Like, what are you talking about? So with me, get up 50,000 feet up in the air, talk to me conceptually. We'll get in the weeds later. And that's when I bring my husband in. I don't want to be in the weeds with you. Thanks, but no thanks.
Exactly.
So who am I talking to? And that's where we can make so many more sales just with that slight adjustment of how they're communicating with their client.
Well, there's 2 things that I want to say to 1000% enforce and, high five you on what you've just talked about. So there's 2 examples. Number 1, at Exciting Windows, the other company that my husband and I own, we have our signature 7-step make a friend selling process. It is a proven selling process. Our partner, who has since passed, is the original founder of this process. It's around for 35 years. Okay. Um, the first 2 steps, 1A and 1B, are all conversation. How are you? What's going on? It's the conversation before you get to the house. So for window treatment people, it is very possible often to do what we call a one visit close. Right? Like it's not common for interior designers. It's not common for a lot of the work that I do now with sponsorships and stuff like that. You're not even going for that, right? But with window treatments, there's times that, I would say 50% of the time you can get the one stop close, right?
Sure.
But only if you're doing step 1A and 1B, because you need that pre-time to get to know them. And that was and the funny thing is I learned about this 7-step selling system, I don't know, 6 years ago, but I was like, oh my God, I've been doing this my whole life. Kind of like your situation with the leasing. You're like, wait, I've been selling you? Well, I knew I had been selling. I've been reading about it since I'm 10, but I was I want to hone on the one point that you made, which is, you need to get in and have a conversation and figure out. Now, maybe you're not going to get everybody to take a disc. You're not going to everybody, but in a conversation, it's clear to me who is not my kind of person.
Absolutely.
You and I said hello. You're a salesperson. Bang. I threw the first volleyball. If you didn't hit it back, okay, I would have backed it down. Right. But I had a pretty good idea that you and I would be similar. And so I came all myself at you.
Absolutely.
But normally, you can list 20 things. I've done 1,000 interviews. I don't start like a lunatic with every person. It's like, I get to know them. How are you? And then I'm like, oh, quieter person, right? It's like, just go a little easier. Just listen. Oh, get a lot of it. Like, there's people that, like your housekeeping. I have housekeeping for the podcast. I'm like, here's the housekeeping. But other people, I'm like, let's run through the housekeeping so you're comfortable. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, and so the thing is, the lesson in what you said that I'm reinforcing, and I want my listeners to hear, is you must engage in human conversation to get an idea of who you're dealing with, the personality type that you're dealing with, whether you can label in your brain or not. You're a human. You feel the energy. Okay.
Right.
And then the secondary thing is, it's so funny when you talk about, don't come at with all the things in the beginning, that first couple of meetings, 1 or 2, maybe there's a phone discovery call and then a consultation, right? With all what you can do for a craftsman home, like in your case with your architect. It's funny because one of my chairman of the boards this year, this is going back 5 or 6 months ago, she was saying that we were honing in on a new ladder of services, a new level of package that she was going to deliver. And she had 1 or 2 occasions where she discussed it with a potential person, and she comes back to me. She's like, it's not working. It's like I'm not communicating the value. It's not happening there. And so I said, well, let's run through it. And I said to her, no, see, you're doing all the talking. I said, this was supposed to be our first consult, right? Like this was a role play of our first consult. I said, you are 15 or 20 minutes into this and you have no idea where your leverage is. You don't know what my hotspots are. Do I want this renovation done in 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years? Do I want to be involved? Do I want you to do it? Like, you have to spend this whole first meeting asking me. You should be listening 75% of this meeting. I said, and then what happens is you're going to decide which of your services is best for me. And then you're going to say, this is perfect because I have the solution for you.
That's right.
You don't tell me your 16 solutions and then I got to figure out which one to pick. That's not leading me. That's
Absolutely.
not the expert that I called for. I didn't go to the row at the big box store to figure out everything about interior design to figure out what service I needed. Right, Connie?
That's right.
Right?
So I'm cracking up. The 75%, I call it the 70-30 rule. Same. We're in the zone, sister. You should be listening 70% of the time. That means shut your mouth. So that's the preparation. See, we prepare for the craftsman. We prepare for the schematic of their floor plan or whatever and what you think they should do. It doesn't matter what you think. What do they want? How do they live? What are their desires? How can you help them become more efficient if the kids' stuff is all over whatever it is that you're addressing, you need to understand before you should be understood. So that's the 70-30. The other thing I wrote down is the only way for us to connect is really to go into listening mode, because that's how we build trust. Because then when you do respond, hopefully with a good follow-up question based on something they said, people want to be seen and heard. And I find that salespeople, we talk at the client versus us having a conversation. And when I say conversation, again, we're listening 70%, not 50-50. It's not a 50-50 split. So how do we build trust? You need to go into that 70-30 listening component. The other thing I wanted to comment on is you said energy. I'm looking at my notes as I look down. I apologize. I like to just look at the camera, but I don't want to miss anything. So the iceberg, energetically, people buy whether they feel good with you or not. So think of an iceberg. The tippy top is 5%. That's our conscious mind, where we're logic and decision making. We're speaking English right now, right? We could see each other on video. All of that is very deliberate. That's the top 5%. Well, guess where sales is happening? The 95% under the water, if you will, that's in our subconscious realm. So you have to learn how to connect with people. And that's why you and I are mavericks, right? It was a nanosecond, but if my architect, right, it takes long, it takes longer. It doesn't for me or you, because we're dialed into this for 40 years. We've been doing it. But new people who understand that it's all about the communication, forget about the sales process for a minute. How do I get really good at communicating? And then you put the sales process on top, and man, oh man, we're off to the races making bank. And when we're making bank, but it's honest bank, meaning we're making money. We're helping our
satisfying people.
Right.
Yes,
exactly. And now we could do bigger, better things in the world. Right. So I believe people like me, it's not about me hoarding my money and becoming this power rich person and me shitting on can I say that? Oh, I'm sorry. Pooping on everybody out there. Right. It's about sharing that wealth. Right. And making that tide rise. Right. All of our boats rise together. So that's where I think you and I also come from, because we are heart-centered in how we approach humans, and that if it's not a good sale, I walk away. I've walked away from a lot of business where they say, but no, I want you. Right. And I said, I know you do. I can't help you because for whatever reason. And what I tried to do is take my network and bring someone in who really can help them. Because now you're creating good reciprocity, good vibes with someone else. Now they're going to look to give me referrals. Although if they don't, I don't care. It's not why I do it, but you're bringing people in to help that person. That's where I come from. And if it's not me, that's okay. Right. So you see it, that's the ick factor when you start pushing, well, I want the money, so I'm going to make the sale, and you're forcing the square peg in the round. Stop. Why are you doing that? More will come to you when you do the right thing. And I know everybody listening believes that. And the last thing I wanted to say with your package, I always tell my clients, you know what you have. Think of your pantry. If you want to bake a cake, you need to go to the store unless you have enough in your pantry to make that, whatever that is. So when I meet a client, I don't go in with a preconceived idea of what they need. I know what I can offer them. So I go in and I listen 70% of the time. We have our great conversation. I connect with them on a communication level. And then at the end, when I do speak, my package of products is customized for them based on everything they just told me. And my close ratio is 80% if they're the right client. If they're not, then I hand them off, or I say, the other thing, let me share this, LuAnn, too. 3 things happen when you ask for the business. 1, yeah. Oh my God, how fast can we do this? They love you, you love them. 2, yeeks, I'm not really the right person. You need to meet my friend LuAnn. She's really the one who can help you. And then the third one is you're not ready for me. You have this going on. You have that going on. You need me. Yes, I agree. Yes. Are we going to be able to work together and create magic? Yes, just not yet. And people go, no. I go, trust me. Let's wait 3 months. I'm going to give you homework. We're going to do things with your marketing department. But in 3 months, we're going to start coaching you on sales and really create magic with your clients. And then what happens? They go, you were right. I get more referrals from the ones I don't do business with because I hooked them up with the right person. And I get more referrals from the people who I say, wait, because they know that you're honest and in integrity as well. So you see, it's all a game, but you have to be playing it with integrity, honesty, and all of that. And the last thing I want to say in my book, I have the first chapter is called Love, which is counterintuitive for sales because, right, sales is smarmy and icky and all of that. And my first sentence is, if you're not selling from love, care, and respect, please stop because you're doing it wrong. So
Right.
that's what you and I are really about, and that's what
Yeah.
we're talking about. The communication is the linchpin, if you will, to unfold tremendous success for you. So we're preparing on the wrong thing. Was that a
No.
good answer? Do you need
Yes,
more?
yes. No, and I love it. And I want to emphasize a point that you made too in there is the all the way back to the beginning of your point with the whole, like we're the 70-75% listening as opposed to speaking in those initial 1 or 2 meetings, right?
Yep.
So definitely the first, sometimes the second as well. It just depends on, if you are meeting with somebody who is not as open, who is more guarded, it might take to the second meeting because
Absolutely.
they need to understand, A, it's worth talking to you because you're going to listen to them. B, that you are there really to serve them. And even though the consumer is not thinking that logically, they're not saying, this person is more interested in talking to me and at me than on, what I want to tell them or what I want to share about what I want my project to be. So I'm not going to work with them. That's not the sentence that's going through their head. What's just
Nope.
going through their head is, this doesn't feel good. You're not listening to me. You know what? You're not paying attention. You're doing too much. You're boring. You keep talking, and I didn't get to tell you what kind of project I want. Right. And so the thing is, depending on the personality, your first 2 meetings might be those listening meetings because, and this is where I want to, emphasize what you said, because by listening, you're establishing that you're building trust, that you're a safe place, that, and the way you do it is exactly what you said, is you're consistently in the listening, repeating back to them what you're understanding their goals, their desires are, the things that they're afraid of with doing a big design project. Like, I always call it, when I'm in those first couple of meetings, I'm pulling all the little nuggets.
That's
I'm
right.
like, you're here, you're saying this. I'm not like debating it. I'm not emphasizing it. I'm not
That's right.
explaining it. I'm just like, oh, there's another one. There's another one. It's like, this is so important to me. Like, I think about one time when I was doing a project for a window treatment customer. Oh my God, this has to be 30 years ago. Let me think about this. So 30 years ago, so I might have even been more than 30 years ago because I was young. I was probably my late 20s, early 30s. And I had done some window treatments for this customer. And I have no problem selling window treatments. They're as expensive as all get out. And it's like, that's what they cost. Whatever. There's the price tag. Your house is going to be amazing afterwards. You're going to love it. It's all going to be fine. Right. But this one customer came and she said to me, she said, I want you to come over. I don't need window treatments. And she said, I want to do pillows on my bed. And I remember thinking, what? But it was a previous customer and I knew her and we had a good rapport and a good relationship. Though I wasn't going to be like, I don't do pillows, right? And of course I could do pillows. I can make drapes. I can make pillows. Well, Connie, I went over there and I'm telling you, it's like 35 years ago. I literally, the pillows like her entire bed, we must have done 10 or 12 pillows and, fabric and trim and tassels and cord and little inlays with miter corners and every gosh darn thing under the sun. And as we're designing it, we're using all the different fabrics because this is back when 16 patterns wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? And we're like, oh,
I
we got a stripe
love
and we got
it.
a floral and we got a this. And she is just so happy. And the thing was, I went back and I priced it, and it was like $1,600 for pillows. Now, right now, every designer went, that's like $4K right now. I'm like, I know it. But it was like $1,600 for pillows. And I remember I had a split second of, this is insanity. But then I remembered one of the things that she said to me in our first conversation about the pillows. She said, LuAnn, I have waited my whole life to create in my bedroom that feeling of going into a beautiful hotel room. She
Oh,
goes, we did the drapes. She said, I did the carpet. I did the lighting, and she goes, "And everything is great, and when I look at it, it's the pillows that are missing." And I went, "Bang, $1,600, boom."
See?
Because it's like I was listening and I understood that
Great stuff.
this was like a crowning thing for her.
Right.
She had spent probably $30,000 on the room and still didn't feel like
That's
it
right.
was going into a hotel room, and for her, that meant, like, they had to put 40 pillows on the floor every night before they got in bed. Like, whatever rocks your boat, right?
That's a great story though, because and see, it was something she said almost in passing.
Yes.
And that's the other thing you said, write notes that people say, oh, I remember. BS. And no, you don't, because they're saying something in passing. And if you don't write it down, you're really not going to remember it 2 weeks from now, or even 3 hours, especially now that all the social media and noise we have in our lives. You really do need to take notes. And one other little tip I give, when you take your notes, let's say you're talking, because people go, well, but if they say something, how do I stay quiet when I need a follow-up question? Stay quiet. So let's say you mentioned pillows or patterns or whatever. I put next to the pillows, right, that you want that hotel feel. I put pillows, hotel, and I put a star next to it. I let you talk about the colors in this, and you like this combination of colors, and look at this material. I let you do all of your blah, 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 blah. And then I say, I'm taking notes, right? So I make sure I get the right patterns and all of that. But then at the end, I say, I want to circle back. You said something about the pillows and it being the crown jewel for you. Tell me more about that. I really
Yeah.
want to understand, because I want to make it the crown jewel for you, but I have to understand what you mean by that. Otherwise, how can I create that for you? So do you see? But I didn't shut them down, because what we do is we go, wait, crown jewel, tell me more. Then
Yeah.
you go down, you go, what were you saying about the pillows?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
Right.
So don't interrupt your client. Let them get it all out, because they're excited, right? They're creating this beautiful, whatever the end result is. Let them get it out. Put your star and then circle back, because now you're going to even have a better follow-up question, because now you're saying, with all of those patterns and everything, tell me what the crown jewel means to you. But then I can recommend, maybe we don't use 16 patterns. Maybe you need 20, or maybe you only need 5. But define crown jewel. As soon as I understand that, now I'm in their head and I have their vision. It's so much easier to create what they're thinking about.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the other, mistake, crucial mistake in that scenario is not only not asking what does crown jewel mean, but assuming you
You
know what crown jewel means for
100%.
that person. It's like, "Oh, they wrote crown jewel." Like, well, what? Like, no, 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 no. You get a conjure in your mind of what they mean, but when you hit on that thing that's a key critical point for them, right, Connie? You got to say, "Tell me, for you, what do you mean when you say
Yeah.
crown jewel?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because making an assumption in that spot, this is, and I just want to cut. Here's the other thing: when I was talking about the Voxer, situational coaching, when I'm going back and forth with one of my designers in this scenario, say this is the exact conversation. If they didn't ask, if they were like, "Oh, and so she said crown jewel," and I'd be like, "Well, what did she mean by that?" "Well, I mean, of course she meant blah blah blah." I'm like, "Right, but did you ask her?" "No." "So here's what you missed. Your critical opportunity was to get her to
Right.
verbalize what crown jewel meant, because later you're going to pull that piece of information out and you're going to come back. And when she says, gosh, $1,600 for pillows? Now I'm going to go pull that out and I'm going to say, well, I can remember when you just said you wanted this. This was the final thing that was missing from feeling like going into a hotel room
Yeah.
here. So, yeah, no, we don't have to do 12 pillows. We can do 4 or 5. Will you get that feeling still with just the 4 or 5? And
That's
then, of
right.
course, they're going to say, no. You're like, great. So get your checkbook. What are we
That's
doing? Right. But like, that's the situational coaching that
that's right.
it's like, you got to look for the moment that
Yep.
you missed because you were too busy thinking and making assumptions as opposed to clarifying it and getting to the actual, right, Connie?
Because we're thinking we want to answer based on what you
Yes.
said. The other thing I want to just share, and I have a real good story for this one. We all have filters. Male, female thinks differently. Where you were raised, whether you're raised on a farm or in inner city or another country, right? They're all filters. No good or bad, no right or wrong, no judgment, but it's how you see the world. So I have to understand, it doesn't matter what my filter is when I'm selling. I have to understand your, not only your communication style, but your filters. And here's an example. I do this one exercise where when they sell, in a classroom especially, I assign a color and I say, now sell the color to me. Make me visualize using your color in my life that I cannot be without it. And how would you sell it? So this one woman I gave an orange to, and we were crying in the class. It was unbelievably emotional. And she went on, she grew up in another country where they were bombing, so I gave her the color orange, and she said orange means violence and life, life shedding and blah, blah. And we were all in tears by the end, and I said, I have to ask, why did you share such violence with the color orange? I'm just curious. And you don't have to answer, of course. And she goes, well, I grew up in another country. And she goes, and they were bombing where I lived. And she said, and now I'm in this country. And she goes, and I'm going to tell you, Americans take a lot for granted. And I was like, amen, sister. But we all started asking her about how growing up and understanding where she came from, it became this amazing conversation, all because she had to sell the color orange. That was her filter. Orange represented violence, where orange to me represents life, the sun,
sunshine,
orange juice,
vitamin
right?
C.
Her spec. But now if I'm selling to her, and I start thinking
Yes.
orange is going to be such a lively color, it looks beautiful with the coloring in your house, and she's thinking orange is violence, she might not verbalize that to me because I didn't open the door for that, but that's her filter. So we really have to be careful, and that's why the questioning process is so critical. And listening.
Yes.
Questioning and listening are married.
Listening.
They have
Yeah,
to go together.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Oh my goodness. I love it. So when you think about the five communication
Styles.
styles,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Is it like, okay, no, everybody should go take your quiz and figure it out themselves? Is it something that's worthwhile running through here? I will tell you this. I think that most interior designers probably are very intuitive feeling people,
Yep.
right? They're
Yep.
empaths. Okay. I
Yep.
think it's very typical for a creative to be an empath.
Yep.
So I know that it's helpful if we have an understanding of
Sure.
communication styles, but I
Sure.
also believe that designers probably can do it intuitively. But the mistake is ignoring it. And like you said, with your architect plowing through and giving details and not understanding that the person on the other side is not a person for details, or the person who, like me, what I always have to do is I have to recognize I'm talking to someone with lower energy level, with wanting more information, wanting more details. But
That's right.
it's 40 years of identifying and training it. Like, you would
That's
think
right.
I took a Valium on half the sales appointments I went on, right? Like, because I literally have already in my 1A, my 1B phone call, have figured out some vibe for this person. So I know if I'm answering the door like, here I am, I'm the lunatic, or hi, I'm LuAnn from Window Works. It's a great day today. Thanks for inviting me over, right? Like, right?
Absolutely.
So is it worthwhile
Yeah,
running
I
through?
think it
Okay,
is.
go ahead.
And
Go
I
ahead.
could do it quickly. So,
Okay.
first one, and I think this is where most of the intuitives are going to fall. You're the heartfelt advocate.
Mm,
You feel with your heart, you lead with your heart. You love people, you love familiar people. So when you're meeting someone new, be mindful when you're meeting a new client. You could be a little apprehensive because you are coming from love, and you want to make sure they see you as well, right? So that's important. Be careful. A blind spot for my heartfelt advocate: your past hurts or things that have gone wrong. It's difficult for you to move forward with change because you hold on to, well, that happened, it's going to happen again. And it's very raw for you because
mm.
you're a heartfelt advocate. You feel very deeply. So it's a superpower, but of course there's a blind spot.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I'm going to guess, and this is true for my architect, and that is a very creative kind of position, but technical as well, because it's one thing to have a creative idea, but how do you bring it to fruition? You've really got to get in the weeds and create and understand and moving parts and all of that. So my guess is they're probably precise assessors, where they seek that perfection, right? Because we want to create that perfect image for the client. So it's a precise assessor where you're precise in what you're doing. You're crossing all the T's, you're dotting all the I's, you're trying not to leave anything to willy nilly, because that's when a whole project can derail. Be careful with the precise assessor. So that's your superpower, right? That level
Mm-hmm.
of detail and
Right.
perfection and seeking to serve. The flip side, though, is you want to be so precise that you'll say, oh, let me do one more drawing. Let me do one more drawing. At some point, your time is worth something. You have to let it go. It's diminishing returns of energy. So
Mm.
that could be a blind spot for the precise assessor. The next one, I also think they would rank high with interior designers. It's called the observing designer.
Mm.
Brilliant minds, but you like to do research. So, which is good, right? Because you want to come with several good ideas to show, right? This is a visual business. So you want to show the client kind of what you're talking to bring your verbal description to life. That's a beautiful thing, doing that research. Here's the blind spot. You go down the rabbit hole and you click on that link, and then you click on that link, and then you click on that link, and 9 hours later you still haven't come up with your proposal or the visuals for the project, but you've done a ton of research. So
Mm.
really be careful, set timers and stuff like that, so that you do what you need to do, get in,
Yeah.
get out, but you can't labor there. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
observing designer. The last two, which is what you and I are, is the innovative organizer, think CEO. We make decisions quickly. Give me just enough information. Give me the big picture. I'm either going to buy it or I'm not, right out of the gate. Okay. So quick decisions. We're movers, we're shakers. Here's the blind spot for us. We could be deemed rude and aggressive because we are very honest and we come at you fast and furious. So that's a beautiful thing in certain circumstances, but in sales, that's a good thing. But you have to temper it, because if I'm talking to my architect or my interior
Yeah.
designer, I'm blowing their doors off.
Oh,
And they're
yeah.
thinking, this woman is freaking out of her
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
because it's all about the task or goal. But what about the emotional component,
Right.
right?
Right.
So we have to be careful with that. And the other one is the stimulating motivator, which is you and I. High energy, shaker mover. Let's get it done. Woo! We want to make everybody shine and win and make money. And we got this. And we'll be your biggest cheerleader. The flip side to that, though, is sometimes we go into go mode so quickly. We're fast. We move and think fast, that we can leave a wake of angst behind us, because we're not articulating and getting in the weeds when people need us to get into the weeds. So we have these great superpowers, but we have tremendous blind spots. So once you're aware of that, and once you understand, like my lowest score is the 2, precise assessor, observing designer. So as soon as I meet a precise assessor, observing designer, they're the slowest, most cerebral of the
Analytic
styles,
type person.
analytical,
Yeah.
cerebral. I have to literally prepare, not with what I'm going to say, because I know that, right? I'm sales. My energy, I need to
Yeah.
control it. So I tell people, if you have multiple calls, and like for me, if I have 3 architects and a designer, I cannot schedule them on the same day, because by the last one, I'm exhausted. Not because the client's a bad client. It's because don't say that. Ask another
Yes.
question. Think before you speak.
1000%.
You're talking too fast. Breathe again. This is what's happening in my mind, so that my message lands for them. That takes effort when you're modifying. So be careful when you're working with clients that you space those stuff. Now, if I had clients like you, I could do 10 in a day.
Oh,
No
yeah.
big deal.
That's
No
it.
big deal.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's keep it. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because um on the Window Works team, I've got 2 that are more the analytical type.
Mm.
And so I know that when I want to introduce a new thing to the sales team. So JC is now managing the sales team, but I'm there kind of like, second chairing the
Yeah.
sales team, right? Of
Guiding.
course, it was my job for 100 years, so I'm
Yeah.
second chairing it, and we kind of do it together ish. But if I've got a new idea, um, like Jay is like, bang, 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 right? Like, let's get it done. And then if I present it to him and he's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, okay, so let me take it to the team, because I will pull it back and I will go slower. And I know the other 2 that are more analytical, I have to say, we're going to start this next week.
Yep.
Like,
That's right.
I have to give them a whole week to think about it, to
Right.
prepare for it, to put their ducks in a row. Whereas me and Jay be like, okay, that's the new thing. Let's go. Right. Like that. And so it's interesting. And I'm curious, because this has been, an interesting challenge for me, is what you just said. I'm so accustomed to assessing a situation and pulling it down. Woosah, take a breath, not so fast, not so crazy, blah, 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 right? But I'm finding I'm at a loss at how to counsel beyond just the actual factual counsel of my analytical people when they are with me, when they're with a personality like mine. I'm like, please stop explaining all the brackets for the awning. I don't care
Don't
about the
care.
brackets.
Gonna
I
hang?
want to
Gonna work?
know how much it's going to cost, how much shade I'm going to get,
Yep.
what pretty color it's going to be in, and how long until I get it. I
Yep.
do not care about the brackets. And so I watched them have made great strides in the last 3 or 4 years in combating that innate process that's so natural to them to want to come on to a sales call and tell me all the features. But I cannot. I think I don't know if I've just literally, that is the 40 years of training. I don't know if it's that I love sales, so I'm constantly committed to being self aware about it. But I just feel like we might be at an advantage of being able to come down more than somebody can go up, right?
Fascinating. Yes, no.
Okay, like,
Because here's the thing, because you and I, this is our craft. Remember that. So
yes,
we have really dialed in that 40 years, understanding that if the person doesn't understand me, the sale will never
I'm not getting
move
the sale.
forward.
Right,
But
right.
that's
Somebody else
because
is going to
we
get
have
it.
that sales mentality. Somebody who's in the weeds, crossing an engineer, architect,
Yes, it's
designers, right?
totally
It's about, I'm going to install it and it's going to last for 1,000 years. You don't have to worry about it, right? We could have bombing and that chandelier is still going to be hanging up there, right? Whatever
right.
that is.
Yeah.
It's just as easy once they develop the skill for them to raise their energy, they absolutely can. It's as much effort as you and I initially, when
Mm,
we first learned this skill. I
yeah.
remember the first time I realized I had an elder couple. I was doing wealth management. They had millions of dollars, right? And they were elders. They were in their 80s. And I come in, woo, talking to grandma, right? I'm all happy. And I saw them. It was a deer in headlights, LuAnn. They were like,
Yeah.
this
Oh,
is what I'm giving them, all this great information about how we're going to make another $1,000,000, right? And how we're going to be safe and all of this. And they're looking at me like, what did she just say? She talks so fast. We can't understand. Is she talking another language? Deer
right.
in headlights. And that was when I thought, holy
Oh, I'm
moly,
not connecting.
I am not
I
connecting.
don't know
And
what
what
they
I did
need.
is called
Yeah.
mirroring. So I
Yes.
slowed my breathing to there. So if I'm an introvert and I'm meeting with an extrovert, let's just keep it simple for the conversation, just follow the breathing of the extrovert, get their rhythm, if you will. And right there, you're going to connect with them more deeply.
Yeah.
So us going down or them coming up, same amount of effort, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here's the end of the day, you got to practice.
Yeah.
And I believe if you really commit to this for a year where you become hyper vigilant and hyper aware of everybody you meet, personally, professionally, your kids, doesn't matter. Analyze, analyze, analyze. What do I think their style is? Why do I think it's their style? What do I need to do for them to hear my message? And you go through those 3 questions quickly, and you do start with your family and friends so that they don't look at you like, what are you thinking about, you weirdo? You stop talking because you're analyzing, right? People will
Right.
notice that. Do it with friends and family first. But as soon as you start to dial into that, I don't even think about it anymore,
Right.
Luann. I just do it
It's
because
intuitive. Yeah.
and it's funny when I teach my communication style, like if I was coaching someone like my architect, I was teaching him sales. And I remember him at the end when I taught him and I says, what do you think my style is? And he goes, oh, you're just like me. And I says, and no, I'm not. Your highs are my two. I have -30, like out of a
Yes.
-50, I'm like a -30, -30. He was like stunned. You're kidding me. I said, I've mastered the skill. So I've become you. And that's why you feel authentically. I am engaged and desiring, and all of that authenticity doesn't go
Mhm.
away.
Right.
I just have to change my delivery so it lands for him.
Mhm.
99.9% when I ask the person I'm teaching, they go, oh, you're just like me. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I love that. I love that. And I can see that. I can see that you can talk to somebody and train them to, match that mirroring. Mirroring, like, see, it's very logical, right? Like when you say mirroring, we all instantly understand, animated, reserved, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think what I have noticed is, if 5 years ago this particular salesperson was going to give you an encyclopedia of a product, now he's going to give you like the cliff notes. And I'm still saying, but there's people like me that don't even want the cliff notes. And so it's like, I just, I mean, I want the Instagram caption. You know what I mean? Like, I don't wait. And so I just feel like, and it's funny because I know the community of designers, a lot of them are the visionary top level, CEO personality. Top level isn't the right word, but that CEO personality, a lot of them are that. But I don't know if it's possible to have that and then that designer observer type thing, right? Because there's a tendency in there for that too. I do see that visionary tendency in a lot of the designers that I've worked with. But the thing is when they're in that discovery, in that thing too, like I'm always counseling this salesperson, get out of your product knowledge. Get out of that now. This is not the time for that.
Correct.
The first couple of meetings are not about describing all the things that you know about the thing. And so it's a tough thing. I think it's a tough, I mean, when I think back to when, look, if I'm selling $30, $40, $50,000 worth of window treatments, if I'm with that analytical personality and they want to know about the brackets, I got to know about the brackets.
Absolutely.
Right? But guess what? I don't know about the brackets. I don't. I actually don't. I don't have the slightest idea. I don't care about the brackets. I never have. And so what I would do is, instead of exercising the muscle and learning about the brackets, I would just say, you know what? I need to bring my partner in here, because my partner, Bill, he's got that engineer brain just like you. He's my lead installer, and you and him are going to be able to talk for a whole hour about the brackets.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then I would just bring in the like animal, you know what I mean? And it was like, and then I'd be like, okay, Billy, stop talking. Let me go close the deal now. You know what I'm saying? But like, there are people that require the details, and you do have to give them to them. But you can't assume they want the details.
But that's correct. So here's the thing: seek to understand before being understood. I know it's just such a great quote, but what you just said is you did the right thing to say, listen, you're asking me about the brackets. I'm the big picture thinker. I'm the color coordinator,
That's
if you
right.
will. I'm the visionary,
Mm-hmm.
the installer. We have experts with that as well. That's just not my zone of genius. So you know what we're going to do for our next meeting? I'm going to bring Bill with me, and then you guys, because I understand you want to make sure it's sturdy. You have children. You want to make sure it's not going to fall on the child if there's an earthquake, right? He could talk to the levels of safety, security, all of that. And you guys are going to hit it off. I'm going to have to interrupt by the end because you're going to be going out to dinner, that kind of thing. But you said you cannot know everything about everything. So you say, my expertise is X. Bill's expertise is why we need him for the next meeting. So you see, now the person feels seen and heard, and now they're saying, oh my, and now they're going to get all the answers they want, because if you try to give them all the answers about that stupid bracket, you're going to give wrong information and you can lose the sale because you're not giving them what they want, where the installer, who is the expert, is going to get into the nuts and bolts and how it's screwed in and whether there's a dolly in there or whatever, Molly, whatever the heck they're called. You follow what I'm saying? So by bringing the other expert in, it's very important to have a team so that you can, and if you don't have a team, then you have to be the expert. That's another whole conversation.
Yeah, but there's ways to access information, and and I think, that is literally a regular tactic. I mean, I knew enough to be dangerous. I knew enough to get through probably 80% of the analytical engineer types that I went up, and sold to. But I also knew that moment that this, to your point, in my gut, I was like, this person truly needs to understand this. And by me pretending to give them answers, that is literally like it's patronizing them. It's condescending to them. Right. Whether they're going to think that or not, it's not meeting them where they are. And so, and it was easy because Billy is that guy. Billy's a freaking genius. You know what I'm saying? He knows all the things. And so, and it's like, I know that an interior designer, they like window treatments is complicated. It's one aspect of what a designer specifies.
That's
And
right.
I always say, you don't have to be. Now, I don't, even me, as crazy, fanatical, driven, type A personality, I don't expect you to be the expert
That's right.
in everything, not anything. I expect you to be the expert in the overall strategy. You're going to point me to what we're going to do.
Yep.
I expect you to be the expert in leading this team. But yeah, if my husband has to know about mollies and toggles, then get the dude in here to have the conversation. Don't feel less than
That's right.
because you don't understand it. You are smart enough to bring the smart person in. That's
That's
all I ask
exactly
of
right.
you,
You
right?
said something important. When you're patronizing, they know it. And when you're
Yeah,
trying to BS them, they
yeah,
know it. And that's why that saying, a little information could be dangerous. It's really true because you can end up shooting yourself in the foot.
that's right.
And here's the other thing. If you don't have someone that, I'm assuming that they do it, people that do the installation, right? Whether they're outsourcing it or whatever. Even if you don't have a go-to person, you can say, listen, that is not my expertise. That is such a great question. I'm going to call my installer as soon as we're done. Give me a day, at least
Yep,
a day, because I don't know if they're on vacation, right? You can't plan other people's schedule, but say, tell me your concern and
yep,
I'll make sure I get the right information, and I'll even try to get images so that you can equate what you're asking and what you're getting, because I don't want to give you the wrong information. I
right.
think I understand, but that's not my zone of genius or expertise. So when you say it, people go, "Oh, that would be great. Thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate that." People don't expect you to know everything.
No,
And when you explain it that way, but say, you give me a day or two, I will get that information. That's a great question. And you know what? That's going to help me in the future. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Right. So now you're not patronizing, you're appreciating. And it's a good question. You're validating, like, hey, man, that's a really good question.
Right. And, because, like we said in the very beginning of the show, it's, the best sale is one that's based in integrity and honesty, and it's a
Absolutely.
win-win. And you know
Yep.
what? If you don't know it, you don't know it. But you know what? You're in charge and you'll find out. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
And I respect that for myself. Like, you can see somebody bull crapping you a mile away and you're just like, see, now the whole
Ick.
thing is done.
Yep.
Whole thing is
Ick.
done for me. Now I can't believe anything you say. And now I'm just like, I'm over. In my brain, you're still talking, but I'm like, nope, I'm done. And I'm just now trying to wait for the one moment where I can say, we're done. And because I am, outspoken and direct, I probably could say, you know what? This is done. Thanks so
I
much.
do this. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
this isn't going to
no.
work.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
This is not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
My husband laughs and I go, he's wasting my time now because you lied. Don't lie to me.
Yes.
Don't
I'm
make up
done.
crap.
I'm
I don't
done.
want to work with you. And oh, by the way, you're on commission. You're not earning commission off me. I want to deal with someone who really knows and cares about me.
I
Even if it's
know.
in that 5 minutes, right? If you're buying a
Yep.
TV or something, but make believe like you care at least,
Yeah.
right? Ask me the
Yep.
question. See me, for goodness sake.
Yep. Yep.
The other thing, be careful. If you have a husband and wife present too, this happened the other day. The guy was selling and he was talking to my husband, and it was my computer. I kept saying, excuse me, it's my computer. He doesn't know anything about a Mac. Don't do that.
Oh
Don't
my
do
gosh.
that. Don't discount the husband or the wife,
Right.
because even if the husband isn't the decision maker, because I was sold finance, right? Financial products through my career. And they would say, well, but I'm the one who does the bills. And I say, God forbid you're not here. I'm not saying she's going to do the bills. She needs to understand, because there's a level of education here that, God forbid something happens to you, don't you want her to survive and thrive?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. And then I would talk to both of them. But men used to say to me, we're back in the 80s again.
Yes.
They
Again.
would
Yep.
say, I'm the decision maker. I'm the one paying the bills. And I would be very respectfully say, I so understand that, but she's important if you're not here. And
Yeah.
they go, oh, and
Yeah.
had the sale. Right from that, I knew I had the sale, because it wasn't just about him and the tactics. It was making sure, and you see the woman kind. And I thought, yeah, when I leave, they're going to be like, and that's the one we're dealing with, you dumb beep, beep, beep. Right.
It's so true. It's so true. You really do have to cue into that also. I mean, in our home decor industry, and again, going back more to 80s and 90s than now, it was not unusual for the woman to have the say over the selections, but the husband to have the say over the pocketbook. And so now, you're the ADD salesperson because you're trying to like talk to everybody and get everybody on the same page. But, there's a way to do it if you're listening and you're paying attention. I mean,
Absolutely.
there 100% is, but the mistake is not picking that up, right? Like, oh, We have veto power here on products and ideas, but we actually have money veto power over here.
Right.
I've got to make both happy, right?
That's
It's
right.
funny because we work with a landscape company at our vacation house for 25 years off and on, and little, like a $10,000 project, a $5,000 project, little things along the years. Well, a couple of years ago we had them come in and do a much bigger project, much bigger. I made myself very clear what I wanted this project to be. I had my friend Jessica Madison, who is one of the guests on the podcast, was a chairman of the board, who's a landscape architect, do a drawing for me.
Love it.
Okay. So I'm not unclear. I'm not showing up to this guy like, hey, I don't know, put a tree here and do that and maybe this. It's literally a drawing. Okay. It gets done. It's not right. It's not right. And I happen to be at the house, and there's all his crew working, and I'm like, that's not right. And I like pull out the drawings. I call his office, and I'm like, you are 10 feet back from my house. You're supposed to be 35 feet from my house with this thing. And they're like, oh no, that's not possible. I'm like, actually though it is. You see, I'm not a fool. I didn't like see this happening, not check it before I call. Like that right there. You see, there's ways, and this is why I tell, the designers I work with, there are certain things that you do that are just a kiss of death.
That's right.
That's not possible? Really? You know that from your office? Meanwhile, I'm sitting here in my yard, right? Long story short, they fix that because, of course, then the big guy had to come verify it. I'm like, oh, your tape measure is different than mine? Great. Awesome. Right? And, well, what do you want us to do? I'm like, I want you to make it right. Oh, I'm going to have to get the crew back here. Well, go ahead. What part of this do I give a crap about your drama on, right? And especially because they're not handling it well. There's no, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I don't know what our miscommunication was. I see the drawing. It says 35 feet right there. Long story long, they do the whole thing. We don't live at the house. We're back and forth. We come back in, and the row of grasses that are planted are not the grasses that I think I'm getting. So there's about 50 of them planted. So I called Jess. I'm like, I give her a picture. I'm like, oh my God, is this me? Did I say yes to a grass? Like, blah, blah, blah. She's like, that's not the grass. That is not the the name of the grass. I call him up. He's like, those grasses are just fine. Those grasses are just fine. That's interesting. And the thing about this is when he finally came to my house, and the lesson is in the listening. The lesson is in the listening. When he came over to the house to debate whether or not these grasses were fine or not, he kept saying to me that they define your yard, they're beautiful, and they give you a veil of privacy. And I said to him, but you're forgetting the words I used with you. What I said to you in that first meeting was, I don't want to see the people on the other side of the grasses. Number one, I do not want to wave at every walker and jogger that goes by my house, because from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m, that could be 200 people. Right. I don't want to wave at all of them. Okay. I said, and the second thing I said to you was, I have an 18-month-old grandson that if he sees the road, he runs to the road. But if the grasses were dense enough, he doesn't see it. He doesn't want to go through it. And he was like, well, these grasses still look good. And I was like, you, sir? I looked at him. I said, okay, I can see we're going nowhere. Because I use very specific storytelling so that you have to say to yourself, yeah, I got to remember that. Okay. Yeah. And he goes, well, I mean, I don't know what you want me to do. I said, okay. 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 And so I said to him, and my husband, Vinny's like, okay, let's just calm it down. I'm like, forget calming it down. I said, I have one question for you. Are you going to make this right? That's all I want to know. Are you going to make this right? Are you going to pull these 50 grasses out and put the 50 that are specified on this drawing? Yeah. And he said, well, I just can't do that. I said, great. Take your stuff and leave. I will never work with you again. I will never refer you. And just thank your lucky stars I'm not 40 years old, because I'd be on Yelp and Instagram right now. Absolutely. And Google. I said, but you know what? I don't have time for you and your bull crap, so I'm not doing that. I said,
Absolutely.
but go away. Do you know this yard is gorgeous? It is fabulous. Is it what I asked for? No, ma'am, it's not. And do you know how many people go by my house and say, who did the landscaping? And I go, you don't want to know.
Wow.
You don't, and depending on the mood I'm in, I either tell them, don't call this company or just don't ask me because I can't refer them, but I'm not going to be a bad mouther. Like it just depends on the mood I'm
Oh,
in and how crazy it gets. But I mean, it so goes back to the very first thing we said, Connie, listening, not talking.
yeah.
This guy, when I tell you, when I go back and I rewind, in my mind, I always rewind, how could I have avoided this situation?
Yeah.
That's my thing when something
Sure.
goes wrong.
Sure.
When I go back to it, I know exactly what happened. In that first initial consultation with Jessica's plans, he was, he must have in 40 minutes told me no less than 3 times that he's an even better landscape architect than this person he's never met, who is a Cornell
Oh.
educated landscape architect, by the way. He told me that one time, he told me, I will know better once I look at her actual specifications if she specified the right specimens or not.
Oh.
And he told me multiple times how well known and how good he was
Who cares?
on the island.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, God, you're so full of your crap. You're so full of yourself. But I didn't stop the process. And so now we're going to do a big renovation. And I said to my husband, I am not ignoring my inside voice on this. If
Mhm.
this guy comes through and he's not repeating back to me the things I'm telling him, like a proper
Yeah.
person who's looking for a win-win does,
Yes.
I don't care what Goomba he is, Vin, he's not doing the job.
Absolutely. Where's
You
your
know what
house?
I'm
I'm
saying?
curious.
What's that?
Where's your house?
LBI.
Oh my God. We have a house in Beach Haven West. We're on the bay.
OMG. We're in
Yeah.
Barnegat Light.
I can wave to you.
I just drove up this morning to do this interview. I mean, it's crazy. So you probably know this company, which I won't say on the air. But I mean, like I go into that long story because it goes back to that first consultation. This man was talking, not listening. And he came away to the conversation with the woman with the pillows. And what is your crown jewel? He came away with this, oh, I'm going to make this yard look beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make the yard first private, second safe,
Safe.
third beautiful.
That's right.
You see? And he totally blew it. But look, 20 years ago, Vin and I would have ripped the damn things out and planted new ones ourselves. And every weekend I go, all right, Juan Carlos is 4 now. He's not running into the street anymore. I'm still waving at every blasted walker. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
It's nuts, but and I know that designers have these situations where they lose a job, where they've given a proposal, they felt like everything went good,
Yeah.
but they lose it because that person is more, I ignored that he wasn't listening to me.
Yeah.
That was on me. It was on me.
Yeah.
And you know what I have to tell you? The reason why I didn't ignore that I didn't love him, I didn't ignore that, but I thought I had a finite drawing
Yes.
that was not, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't think I had to like look up the name of the horticultural specimen and compare it to the things coming off the truck. I don't know. I thought he was honorable. I thought if the damn plan called for that plant, that's the plan he delivered.
Absolutely.
Poor Jessica, when she saw it, she was, and the thing is, to the point of every designer out there, this is why when a consumer wants something done right, they hire the expert to oversee the whole project.
That's
If I
right.
had hired her to oversee the whole project,
Yes.
this never would have happened because she would have
Yes.
talked his language all the way through and she would have
Yep.
been there on install day and she'd be like, that
Yeah.
is not the XYZ specimen.
Yes.
But we're friends. And I was like, Jess, I'm not dragging you 3.5, 4 hours from Connecticut to oversee a 2-day install. I got this.
Absolutely.
Ha
Yeah.
ha.
Ha ha. See,
Ha ha.
yeah. And that's why it's penny wise, dollar foolish.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to say is, and be careful that, like, if you come in, I'm looking for window treatments, maybe you can sell the comforter and pillows. So how we converse with the client as well, we could create there's an implied need. It's called an implied need where, yeah, it would be nice to do the pillows too, but I don't have the bandwidth right now. I heard that. So
Yes.
now when I start communicating and I said, listen, we could do this first round. And then when you have more bandwidth, we can always do the comforter and the pillows. By the end, they're already talking about, so how about in 3 months, you
Yes. Yes.
become not only the partner now, but you become what I call a planning partner long term, so that you put the bee in their bonnet, so to speak, about doing other renos or other
That's right.
things within the home, or something you see to say, wow, you're going to have all this light coming in now. You have this over here. It's actually not going to be spotlighted. I might move that, or I might put that in another part. Now, all of a sudden, you're expanding your depth of what you're recommending, even though you're not making money on making that recommendation. When they do have another event that they want to change something, they're going to remember you, because they
That's
thought,
right.
oh, she had such a good vision. She got me. And when I moved that, they were so right. It looks so much better in that other room. So we become planning partners for people as well, based on how we show up in that initial project or whatever it might be.
Right.
We leave money on the table by not planting seeds. And sometimes a person says, look, man, I'm out of budget. This is it. This is all my husband told me. Okay, cool. But I
Right.
could still make those little recommendations, and they could go to At Home or another place and do it themselves. It's still
Right.
better than nothing, right?
That's
But
right.
they based it on my expertise. When they have another event, they're going to call me. I'm on top of mine. I've
That's
proven
right.
myself.
That's right. I love it. I love it. And it, again, that is rooted in truly listening.
That's right.
I'm
Yeah.
here to talk about this, but, on the back of my brain is that.
Yeah.
And so how can I work that in? Well, I could do this for 15 hours. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm looking at it's an hour and 10 minutes. I'm like, holy crow. I mean, I just know that when we truly acknowledge that, when we're listening and we're engaged and we're paying attention and we're really taking the full heart that we have, and, designers, my goodness, Connie, I'm going to tell you what, I have never met a designer that is a designer by accident.
Yeah.
There's no accidental interior designers. Window treatment people, there's like a billion of us. Why are you in a, well, my husband, I met him, I was dating him, he sold blinds, started selling blinds. Okay. Oh, my mom and dad, they had the shop and I worked in it when I was high school. Next thing I know, I was doing it. Like, it's rampant in the window treatment industry, and I'm sure in lots of other industries. But I have never, ever spoken to one interior designer that isn't like, I love it. And so I want to help them, just marry that
Absolutely.
passion with some salesmanship so that they can be profitable doing it. So
Yeah.
thank you for
So they don't
you
go out of
helping me.
business, right? 'Cause
Yes.
they're the
Yes.
ones we want to stay in business,
Exactly.
not like the
Exactly.
jokester that did the wrong plans for you because his vision was better than yours. It's
Ay,
not your
ay,
house.
ay. Yes.
So, right, it's that
Yeah.
blending of, these are the people we want to support. We want them to make money because we want them to be generational businesses
That's
too,
right.
because we know it's going to be in integrity, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So thank you for helping me in that
Oh,
mission today,
thank
Connie.
you for
Thank you.
having me. Great conversation.